All right. Welcome back. This is the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot podcast. This is the 11th episode, and I'm your host, James Ford. And today I have with me Yvette. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And Yvette is also a veteran. What branch of the military were you in?
Army veteran.
Army. Okay, so she's Army. She's not in the Marine Corps. She's not a Marine. She's not a crayon eater. She definitely wasn't in the Navy. We won't judge. Anyways, so why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, like what you did in the Army?
Yeah, so, oh gosh, it seems like forever ago. I was 17 years old. I enlisted in the Army. I was 25 uniform combat communications.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's an interesting job. That's one of those jobs where it's like no one can... Because some of those radio equipment things are so, there's a lot to them than what people think.
Well, it's so funny because when I went in originally, I thought I was going in as an MP. And then when I was at MEPS, when it came to finalizing the contract, as I'm finishing it, my recruiter wants to look at me with my bags in my hand and goes, "Oh, your MOS doesn't leave until September." It was May.
What?
I'm like, dude, what? He's like, well, I have another MOS that's available. Do you want it? And I go, well, what is it? It's 25 uniform. What's 25 uniform? Do you want it or not? Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I didn't find out what 25 uniform meant until about 3 weeks into boot camp. And then when I got to AIT, they go, okay, well, you're going to learn 1100110. And I was just like, okay, binary code, let's go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's
but
awful.
It was great. I mean, regardless, it wasn't what I initially went in for, but it was good.
My only question is, did you at least have a good experience?
You know what? It was overall, I think when looking back to it, if I could go back and do boot camp again, as crazy as that sounds, I would love it.
Yeah.
I think the overall experience, just the relationships that are made, like even to this day, it's been, 13 years since I enlisted. Those are some of the best friends I've made. And I think all of us, everybody, regardless of whether they think they had an overall good experience or not, that's something we can all say is like the friends that you make there and the relationships that you make there stay forever.
Yeah, they do.
So that's something I definitely carry with me.
Yeah. That's true. You definitely build a lot of relationships. I'm still mostly friends with some of the people that I served with. Some of them already went on social media, but that's probably for the best. Anyways, so I came across you. For the past for about 3 or 4 weeks, ever since this kind of started, I had in the back of my mind, all right, I want to hear from I know there's going to be veterans out there that have got it and recovered. And, there's probably a couple in here in town where I'm at that have got it and recovered. But I wanted to hear from someone, a veteran specifically. That's usually who I only interview, that got it. And I want to hear what it was like for them. So I found you, through, I don't know if Task and Purpose reached out to you for the interview or how they found it, but they shared it. And that's how I found you. I looked up your name on Facebook. I was like, hey. So anyways, so now here you are, and it's wonderful that you're totally open to this. Anyways, so I'd like to hear, what it was like for you. Like, you could just start from the beginning and just lay it all out in your own words. So
how much time do you
Huh?
It has been a long road. I said, how much time do you have? Because it has been a long road.
Oh, I got plenty of time. So
okay, all right. So let's start at the beginning. We'll start very simply. So I'm 30 years old. I live out here in the Los Angeles area. I am 100% healthy, or excuse me, I was 100% healthy at the time. I don't have any kind of history of any medical illnesses or anything like that. So at the time that this whole pandemic sort of started, it was being advertised like, hey, unless you're somebody who is maybe 65 years old and over, or somebody who has kind of chronic illness background or some sort of a medical condition, you are more than likely not going to be getting this. You're good to go, right? So that's sort of how it was advertised. So I'm actually a security supervisor, and I do large events out in LA. So the large events, it can consist anything from 100 to 100,000 in one gathering place.
Yeah.
And I'm working jobs like this maybe 5 to 6 times a week. So it's looking like, if we go back down the timeline, that's most likely where I was exposed.
Yeah.
Now, it's almost impossible to say exactly the moment that I caught it. Just like if you got a cold or flu, it would be almost impossible to know exactly when the contact was made.
Yeah.
So basically, it happened really quick. Like I just remember I woke up one morning and I had a really bad headache. And the thing was, it was different. It was from the temples to like the front of my eyes. It was very much in the front of the face. And then the back of my head was really heavy. The best way I can describe it, and I'm so glad that I'm having this interview with you, because I feel like I can actually say things.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, well, because on TV, there's certain things you don't want to say.
Yeah.
Best way to describe it, and I'm sure everyone watching will be able to relate to this. Have you ever had a really bad hangover?
Oh, yeah.
A nasty hangover.
At least once a month.
Okay, so when you're laying back and you try to move, you just feel this crazy heaviness in the back of your head, and then a little spinning up in the front. Exactly to the T what it felt like. And I remember that I called a friend of mine because they invited me out, and I go, you know what? I feel really hungover, but I hadn't drank. I hadn't drank in like 2 weeks. But I was like, you know what, dude? I'm just gonna stay in bed. Like I feel kind of shitty. Like I'm just gonna stay here.
Yeah.
So I stayed in bed for 2 days, and I also had really bad body aches.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I didn't think anything about that was because I do train in boxing, and I've been training in kickboxing for quite a while. So the day prior, I had a really, really intense training session with a new trainer. So when I woke up, my body aches were really bad, but it was more so like in the top of my back. But I figured it was just from throwing these punches. So really bad headache and really bad body ache, specifically in my upper back.
Yeah.
So I was like that for 2 days. On the third day when I woke up, mind you, I'm in my room at this point. I wasn't purposely self-isolating. I just felt that terrible that I was alone. So on the third day when I woke up, I noticed that I had a sore throat, but it was unlike any other kind of sore throat. It was almost like I had shards of glass in my throat. And it was weird because I've had strep throat, I've had, laryngitis. This was totally unique. So I wake up with a sore throat, and I start noticing I have a little bit of a cough. It was completely dry. There was no phlegm or anything. And as the day progressed, I noticed the cough started to get worse. So the cough is getting worse. My throat is killing me, and I start getting this kind of hot sweats.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until that night on the third day that I started coughing. And I was coughing so bad that after I was done coughing, I would go to catch my breath, and I was gasping. I felt like I was gasping for air. And mind you, I don't have asthma. I don't have anything. So I think at that point, it was so bad that I said, okay, something's weird. Something is not right. I think it's time to go get checked out. Because it made me a little nervous. So I drove myself to the hospital. It was the VA in Long Beach. So I get to the VA, and mind you, this whole time I'm hearing about that COVID stuff on TV, but that doesn't hit me because I'm only 30 years old, and that's for those people.
And I'm assuming from that your VA treated you well, because we all know that the rumors going around the VA.
That's what I was just about to say that. Like this is my first time being at the VA.
Yeah.
In the hospital.
Yeah. And
I didn't really know what to expect because, like, I remember back when I was in the military, it's kind of like, hey, shut up, drink some water. Hey, here's some Motrin, here's some ibuprofen.
Yeah, have
a good day, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't really know what to expect. I'm just like, okay, is it going to be like it was back then, or is this going to really be a good hospital? So I'm walking up to the VA. I'm coughing up a storm, and this was very early on. This was before, like now I think they're a little bit more set up. But I walk up and I get stopped right away at the doors, but I didn't even make it inside. And they went down this checklist, like, what are your symptoms? And as soon as I started telling them, they grab a mask and like.
How long ago was this? Like
this was on. I got symptoms on the 9, 10, 11. This was on the 12th.
Oh,
Excuse
wow.
me, 12th of March.
That was like right around the time I had my surgery.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess we were at the hospital at the same time.
Yeah.
So they throw this mask on me, and they're like, okay, go over there. There's a white tent. Go into the white tent. And, like, she instantly, like, ugh. But she didn't mean to. You could tell she didn't mean to. She just got kind of nervous.
Yeah.
So I look over, and there was these white tents set up out in front of the VA, which looked like something straight out of a movie.
Yeah.
So I go into the tent. I'm in there. There's 4 other vets with me, old timers, which was I'm looking, and they had us so close together. That's what was so crazy to me, because I'm thinking like, hey, if we had COVID, I'm right next to this guy, right?
And he doesn't, he may not have it,
He may not have it, but he might. And they're coughing. And the thing is with these old timers, and we all know this when we go to the VA, they love to talk.
They do.
So I've got my dude, and I love it, don't get me wrong. But the whole time I'm like trying to breathe. And old timer over here, he just wants to talk, and I'm doing my best. But man, I noticed that my symptoms were so much more intense than everybody else's. So these guys, someone might have had a little cough or whatever it was, but nobody was acting like I was. I was trying to breathe and everything else, which that to me was a red flag right away. But they're the ones that are supposed to have it, not me, right?
Yeah.
So what they did was they don't test you right away. They do process of elimination. So basically they test you for everything that could potentially be an upper respiratory infection. So they test you for the flu, for strep throat, bronchitis, and one by one, these guys started getting picked up. All right, sir, you have this. Here's your medicine. Have a nice day. And before I know it, I'm the only one left in the tent.
Oh, man.
And the nurses are looking at each other kind of like, and I'm like, okay, something's up, because why are they looking at each other like that, right?
Yeah.
So it was a nurse, and it was I think it was a doctor, and they came to me, and they were very serious, they go, so Miss Paz, we just need to tell you we are very concerned about you, and we are going to go ahead and test you for COVID because you tested negative for everything else.
Yeah.
So you can imagine my reaction. I'm just like, okay. There's no way, but sure. So they go, all right, and they bring this little Q-tip thing, and they bring it up, and he's like, okay, well, it's going to be a little uncomfortable. And he went in with this thing, and I was like, okay, if you were trying to test my brain, you got it. You got the brain, But you know what? It's so quick. Like, people are afraid of it, but by the time you feel it, it's already taken out. It was really fast. So I felt really bad, but they were like, all right, well, now that we have the test is not going to stay here. It doesn't get tested there. It gets sent out to a different organization, and you wait 3 to 4 days for the results.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, so this is what I'm being told. And I already feel like shit, right?
Yeah.
So they go, okay, so for 3 to 4 days, you're going to go to your room. You're going to stay there. What did they say? I think they sent me they gave me ibuprofen. That's what it was, because I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
So they're like, here's some ibuprofen.
What everyone at the time was telling everyone not to take, and there's so many anyways, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, no, we'll get there. We'll get there. So they give me ibuprofen, and they go, all right, stay in your room for 3 to 4 days. If you don't receive a call from anybody, that means you're negative. So I said, hold on, time out. I go, so does that mean that if I'm negative, I don't get anything? Nope. If you're negative after 3 to 4 days, you're good to go. That's a little nerve-wracking on its own.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you could at least let me know. And they go, well, no, because we have so many people that are testing. We just don't have the resources or bodies to be sitting there on the phone all day calling all the negatives. Okay, no problem. So I go home with my little ibuprofen, and it was in my... Now, the interesting thing there was I started to feel better. And this is really important, because this is something that the doctors are saying is a pattern. It's a behavior that's happening with COVID. I was taking the ibuprofen. My throat pain went away completely. Like, it was gone. The body ache started to go away. The fever started to calm down. The only thing I had left was kind of this little cough, but that was it. Yeah. My energy was back. So 4 days go by, and I never received a call. Nothing. So guess what I did on day 5?
Oh, you went out.
Sure did. So I'm feeling better. I'm like, all right, I'm negative. I'm good. I went out with my mom and my sister. I was with my baby niece. I went out with some girlfriends to this place out here locally, and we had a couple of drinks, of course. And there's got to be almost 200 people in this place.
Yeah.
Almost 200 people. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So then my sister and I, we get our nails done in the afternoon, and I'm finished. I pay the lady. We get in the car, and my phone rings on day 5.
On day 5.
They go, hello, we're calling from the Department of Public Health. We just wanted to let you know that you are coronavirus positive.
Oh my gosh.
As I'm staring at my sister, and I'm just going, time out. I tested 5 days ago. I was told that it was, yeah, no, we apologize. There's been a delay on the phone calls because of resources. And I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh my gosh, I just exposed so many people. And at this point, the way that the media was sort of perceiving it, not purposely, but I think it's just the way it was sort of being seen, is like, if you have coronavirus, like, say goodbye to your family, you know, you're done. That's the end of it for you.
Yeah.
So when I'm hearing this, I'm like, wait, what do I do now? Because I just exposed all these people but I feel fine. So that's what I said to them. I said, you know, I feel fine. I don't understand. Well, they said, all you're going to do is you're going to go back into your room. You're going to stay there for 14 days. And then after those 14 days, you're good to come out. However, they said, if you do feel any worsening symptoms, make sure you go to the hospital right away.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. No problem. So I didn't want to panic. I did tell my mom, who freaked out, as you could probably imagine. But I just went up into the room and I was done for the day. I mean, at this point, it's maybe 8 p.m. So I get dressed for bed. I laid down. Now, when I laid down, and this is the day they called me, when I went to lay down, the cough came on, but really, really violently. And I was coughing my guts out. And then all of a sudden, it got to the point where the gasping turned into a sensation of drowning. I felt like I was drowning in my own lungs.
Oh my gosh.
I remember I came off the bed. I was on the floor on my hands and knees, gripping onto my bed, trying to breathe, because I felt like my lungs were not getting oxygen.
Oh my gosh.
That freaked me out because I've never had anything like that. So I would get little bits of oxygen, just enough to kind of keep me breathing, but it was terrifying.
So you had pneumonia for sure.
That's what it was.
And then so the fluid was probably like at the bottom of your lungs, and when you laid back, it rolled up into and.
That's exactly what happened, because when they looked at the CAT scan and everything, they said that the damage and everything that was done on my lungs was started at the base. So that's exactly what it was. So fast forward, I drive back to the VA. They look at me again. They do all the tests again, and they go, okay, well, you have severe pneumonia. We're hospitalizing you. You're staying. So I get in there. They do a chest X-ray, and they did show, starting at the base of the lungs, there was lung damage. Mm-hmm. And they didn't know what it was going to look like, but hey, here we go. So they put a mask on me, they covered me up, they were completely covered, and they put me up on the 4th floor, which for us it's called the DOU, the Direct Observation Unit, that's what it was. Negative pressure room. It's crazy. What's a
negative pressure room?
Go ahead.
What's a negative pressure room? Some people.
So a negative pressure, mind you, I'm not a medical professional or anything, but it's supposed to just be like the air, it gets purified in there on its own. So there's 2 big old sets of glass doors to even get into there, and if you go in there, you have to have a suit on. Mm-hmm. So it's something to do with the pressure in the room, and it's like a self cleaning. It cleans the air or something like that.
So probably helps like manage the air pressure for your lungs and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think it also helps to keep. So on the other hand, the room was always very warm, and I think we all know that hospitals are usually freezing. So I was hearing something about the virus doesn't do well in heat. Mm-hmm. So you remember that. So I don't know. I'm sure all of that comes into play with it. But basically, they put me into this room. Like these nurses, there's no connection. There's no direct connection with the nurses, because all you see is a set of eyes through goggles. You don't see anything else. Yeah. So already, I mean, just the connection there is hard. And when they come in, you can see them sort of doing one of these, and I'm like trying to ask questions, and they're sort of doing this. But the thing was, you could tell that they were fighting, because I have to say, apart from all the rumors of the VA, I've been in hospitals in the past. Mm-hmm. These were some of the nicest, most amazing people that I've ever had taking care of me. So they did a great job. It's just, you can sense the frustration of like, we don't know what we're dealing with. Yeah. So the first 3 days were very rough. I do remember that they just kind of blurred. Like they blurred. It was a big blur. I was sleeping so much. And then when I would wake up, I didn't have any energy. The coughs were so bad that I started having these coughing attacks where I actually couldn't breathe. Mm-hmm. And they would have to come in and put me onto an oxygen, just the oxygen tube just to get me to breathe. And they were trying inhalers. They tried like a breathing treatment, but then they took it off. But I know, going back to the ibuprofen comment that you made earlier, when I came back the second time, They said, "Do you have the ibuprofen that was given to you?" "Yes, I do." "Open your purse right now, take it out of her purse." Like, they wanted to physically see it come out of my belongings and trashed.
Yeah.
Because I don't know exactly what the effect is, but they were really adamant of like, get that away from her right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in there for 3 days. It was terrible. They had done another CAT scan and x-ray on the third day to compare it to the first day, and they were showing that the lungs were getting progressively worse.
Yeah.
So I had not turned the TV on for the first 2.5 days. I mean, I was almost lifeless. I was exhausted.
This is the part that I sympathize with you, because you're up there alone, no contact, no socialization, and that is like...
Here's what's crazy. This is the craziest part. Check this out. So when you're in there, in my case, I can only speak to my case because I know that there are some that are so much worse than what I went through. I was not on a ventilator because there's a certain percentage that gets you on a ventilator. If you go below a certain percentage, like your oxygen level anyway, that's when they put you on the ventilator. I was just above it, so I didn't actually require the ventilator. So the way that this virus behaves is like a roller coaster. Okay, so you'll have moments where you're down in the dumps and you feel terrible, but then you'll have these moments where you're like, I'm okay. Yeah. And that's what's happening to me. So during those moments where I felt okay, I'm a very social person. You're in this room completely alone. I mean, it just got, what do you do?
That's rough.
You know, like, I can't see anyone. I can't talk to anyone. I've got all these pins and needles in me. Like, it was pretty crazy. So on the first day, I've always been very social, very vocal, and I do have, my Facebook friends and my family. So I was like, you know what? Let me just make a little video to let everybody know I'm okay, to sort of let them know what's going on. So I did. Shot a quick little video on my cell phone, uploaded to Facebook, and I went to sleep. The next morning I wake up, it says 27,000 views.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, what?
It got shared so many times.
Yeah. So it got shared all, and then I did a second one on the second day, and that one went viral as well because it was symptoms, and that one even got more. So I think at that point I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to document this, and I'm going to be super candid, and I'm going to just say everything because at that time there was so much fear. This was when, like, here, I don't know how it was out there in Texas, but here in California, people were losing their minds. I mean, they were fighting in the stores for toilet paper, and they were, it got so hectic here. Yeah. And what I was trying to do was I was trying to show the virus working in real time, to maybe put some people's mind at ease, just to let them know the information the doctors were giving me. And that's sort of what I started doing. But yeah, there were moments in there, like I'll give you one example, or I think I had told you, no, I didn't tell you, I'm sorry, I told someone else earlier. So I'm in there, I start having one of these coughing attacks, and it was so scary because then this was the most intense one. On the third day, I felt like my lungs were just not expanding anymore. Yeah. It scared me. I remember I jumped up forward on my bed, and I'm gripping onto the sides, trying to breathe. I have tears rolling down my face, not because I was crying, but because of the pressure that was built up. And I'm frantically pushing this button to get my nurse to help me. Yeah. And it did.
How fast?
The nurse didn't come for like 10, 15 minutes.
Oh,
because they had to suit up.
I would have been. That's frustrating. That's so frustrating.
Oh yeah. And but it's for their safety. They cannot go into that room without the proper equipment. Yeah. So it was insane. By the time they did come in, luckily I had worked through it and I was able to. But what that does to a person's mind, being completely alone, thinking like, hey, if something is going to happen and something terrible happens, the worst happens, it's going to happen, and I'm going to be completely alone, and I'm going to be watching nurses through this glass door putting on a coat. That's going to be my last image, So it does something to you mentally. It is a battle that, I've told many people before, like, I'm glad it was me, because if that would have been my mother or my sister or somebody else, you have to be really mentally ready for it.
Yeah, you have to be mentally, yeah. That's something too I want you to elaborate on, because that's like, I was talking to one of my civilian friends, like the way that I got through combat is I was ready to die. You know, in the back of my head, I'm like thinking, there's a real chance I'm going to die. I don't want to, but it could happen.
Right.
But knowing this made me work harder in the end, you know, because I was ready for the worst case scenario. Even though I wasn't negative, I still had a great outlook. So like, how like, what about this, like, so elaborate on like the type of mindset that like how this affected you, you know, like from like the beginning to the end of like being in this hospital scenario. Like how have you changed as a person?
Yeah. So there's been quite a bit of change, I think. So I think first when I went into the hospital, you can almost say I had an ignorant mindset, and ignorant to the fact that I'm invincible. Yeah. You know, this can't touch me. I don't have what these old timers have. You know, that's for them. This is not for me. And that was a very ignorant way to think. Yeah. Because although yes, there was information being pushed out there, I didn't know the facts. I didn't research anything. I was not educated on it. And I was just assuming because, you know, of my lifestyle, I was so overly confident, and I got smacked in the face. Yeah. That was a huge dose of reality saying, hey, you're not invincible. Yeah. You know, you're just like everybody else, and we're going to go through this, and let's see what happens, right? So when I'm in the hospital, when I was in the hospital, it was really sort of one of those, you appreciate the little things. And what I mean by that is I'm very social. I'm a chatterbox, if you can't tell. Yeah. You know, I like to talk.
But you're so positive, though.
What was that?
So you're so positive, though.
Well, I just have a ton of energy, and I'd like to be able to, you know, sit here with a drink, you know, if I want to. I like to be able to have my friends over. Like I think I built this very flowy life, and to lose all of it, not just to lose that, but you lose your humanity. You're not treated as a human anymore. You're treated as a diseased object. Yeah. Literally. Yeah. You know, it's crazy. Like the only way I could compare it is like if you guys, you know, the movie Thor, or maybe it was the Avengers, but when the hammer comes down and they build this huge, you know, it's on the ground, and they build this huge like quarantine space around it, and everyone's got these hazmat suits because it's this like foreign alien object. Yeah. That's how you're treated, which is insane to me. I'm a human being, but my humanity at that point was gone. I was stripped of it. It's like a
scene out of E.T. or something like that, you know?
It was insane. And it really, it's a very humbling experience. Because, I mean, like I said, I never thought I'd get sick. Yeah. And my sister has gotten sick. I mean, I've had people in my family, but it's just never really happened to me. So you go through this whole change, and then you see, you know, I'm somebody who physically is very fit. So on top of, hey, I can get sick, to now my very fit body, I can barely move. I can barely move my muscles. I can barely move myself. That alone, for somebody who takes pride in their health, that weighs on your mind because you feel like you're losing control of your own body. And that is absolutely terrifying. I mean, I remember I think it was the second and third day I was making my videos, and the color in my face was completely flushed. I was completely pale. My eyes looked like they had black circles. I mean, I was losing my everything I had for, and I could visibly see it. So the first 3 days, I think, were incredibly taxing on the mind. I mean, I remember I had, just to keep me feeling human, I ordered food one day, and it was one of those moments where I got a little bit of energy, and I was like, I need to do something that makes me feel like I'm a human being. Yeah. I ordered pizza from Pizza Hut because they were delivering. So I called my nurse, and I was like, hey, can I order food? Because I'm hungry. And she goes, well, I don't see why not. I mean, if it's a delivery, as long as I get it. So I ordered myself a big old pizza, and I just like ate my feelings in there. Yes. I did. I'm in the DOU by myself, and I'm just eating a big pizza. And the nurse even laughed, but she was like, you know, it's just so nice to see that you're still trying to keep your humanity. You know, I'm not, because I never once cried. You know, I'm not going to sit there in a corner and woe is me. It's just not who I am. So it's very much sort of that mindset where I'm prepared for the worst, but I'm also not going to give in to all the negativity. And also I knew that there was not a lot of information.
Yeah.
And I felt like, look, number one, I can panic and I can freak out and I can sit here and depress myself and cry, or I can say, I have a great team of doctors, which I actually did. I had a doctor, an infectious disease specialist who was dedicated specifically to me, which was awesome. And my nursing staff was great. So I said, I'm going to take that little bit of energy that I have, and I'm just going to, let's team up with these guys. Let's team up with these guys and see what happens.
Yeah.
If I put all of my trust in them, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
and I had an amazing outcome.
That moment, they're pretty much your best friends.
Yeah. Yeah. And the good thing is they gave me really good information. They seemed to really genuinely care.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I know some of us might have had experiences in the doctors at the hospital where they'll come in and it's almost like they're looking at you, but they're kind of looking at the furniture in the back. It's almost like a rehearsed, okay, this is what you have, this is what you take, blah, 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 blah. Here's your work note, have a nice day.
Yeah.
It was nothing like that. My doctor would come in every day, put his chair down and just sit there and have a heart-to-heart with me and say, hey, this is where we are, and he used to thank me. He would say, I'm learning from you because I don't know any of this. And it was just this very intimate interaction. So it was very unique, which I thought was cool. But I said, you know what, instead of panicking, I'm going to go ahead and trust in these guys and see what happens, right? So the first 3 days were terrible. The night of the third, and I remember because it was the first time I turned the TV on, I had not touched the television for 3 days because I was too tired. I turned it on, and Donald Trump was talking about this new medication that they were thinking of possibly trying. Mm-hmm. So it was not FDA approved. They said this is definitely going to be a trial, but it worked in France, and it worked in a couple other countries. And they said it was called hydroxychloroquine. Mm-hmm. Hydroxychloroquine sulfate is the actual name. So I just remember, I thought it was cool, but I changed it because I don't want to hear about coronavirus all day. So yeah. I wake up the next morning, lo and behold, here come the doctors, and they go, we want to have a conversation. We just heard about and we got access to hydroxychloroquine sulfate. And going through your chart, looking at your numbers and everything, you qualify to volunteer if you so choose. But if you want to go that route, we need to have a very long and serious conversation because obviously it's a trial. I mean, you don't know what can happen. So we did. We had a long conversation about it. We went over the possible side effects. And once everything was said and done, there was no way I could say no to it. I mean, the idea that you could possibly save millions of people, and I think a lot of us as veterans, if we went in for the right reasons, you know a little bit of what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Something you do could affect millions of people at home. That is amazing, right? So that's when I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Where do I sign? And I signed my life away again.
Yeah.
So we started it there. At this point, my white blood cell count was dangerously low, and this is why they were keeping me in the hospital. So I do want to say, if I can, just like a huge disclaimer to everybody, there is a confusion right now that the coronavirus is what puts people in the hospital. So people are afraid of that. That is not the case. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying my best to push this out to as many people as I can. So the coronavirus does not put you in the hospital. What the coronavirus does, it's a virus just like everything else. It lowers your white blood cell count, okay? When your white blood cell count is lowered, you are open to secondary infections. Mm-hmm. So that secondary infection, the most common one that's happening right now is pneumonia. Mm-hmm. So that's why when you hear people going into the hospital, it's pneumonia cases. You're not going to hear anybody who was hospitalized for coronavirus and that's it. Yeah. So I just want to that because I think there's a lot of confusion and a lot of people are freaking out about that.
Yeah.
Yes. So my white blood cell count was dangerously low. We make the decision to start it. It was very simple. It was a small little pill that you take twice a day. So I took it on day 4. I took it again on day 5. On day 5 was when they sort of came together. They said, all right, we checked your white blood cell count and it spiked after the hydroxychloroquine. And when I started ingesting it, they said I had a spike of white blood cells. So because of my age and because of, my healthy lifestyle and everything, they felt comfortable, and because they needed the bed, they felt comfortable enough. They felt comfortable enough sending me home to continue the trial at home. So, disclaimer. But it's true. I mean, the doctor said it just like that. He's like, "Look, we need the bed. You're 30 years old. You're healthy, or you were healthy before. We feel comfortable enough monitoring you from home.
Yeah.
So they sent me home with basically a bunch of medicine to combat the symptoms, and then the hydroxychloroquine.
And I'm assuming your oxygen level started going back up at this time too.
Yeah, I mean it was better than it was before when I started taking the hydroxychloroquine. I was still having the most noticeable thing I think after the first week of the hospital was I would get winded very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So when they did the second, so when I did the CAT scan and the X-ray the first time, they said it was more on the base of the lungs of the infection. When they did it the second time, they said that it was on the base, but it had actually grown and it went up to the back of my lungs and it was starting to climb. So it was progressively getting worse. So one thing that the doctors did say is even if the hydroxychloroquine is successful, your lungs will never go back to 100%. Mm-hmm. The reason is because there is so much damage already done to your lungs, but we're not going to know what the extent is until you come back later for a follow-up. So we have to do a few more tests to see, did it get better? Did the damage go up? Did the damage go down? We just don't know.
Yeah.
And obviously only time will tell.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went home. I wasn't doing a whole lot because what the hydroxychloroquine did was I took it for 2 days in the hospital. When I went home, starting on the third day, I mean, there were moments I couldn't even move. Like, if I had to go to the restroom, you better hold it, because I was not moving out of that bed. I was having these really intense sweats. I was soaking through my clothing. I was soaking through my sheets. And just the energy level. I remember I made a video on my Facebook that you can see where I'm speaking, and even talking, I'm talking really slow, and you can see that I'm breathing these long, drawn-out breaths because I was so exhausted.
Yeah. And
that was the hydroxychloroquine working in my body. Yeah. And you just feel this crazy battle going on. It was pretty insane. So then I think at the end of the fourth day, I started having small bouts of energy, which was nice because I hadn't really moved around in so long. So I would get these like 15, 20 minutes of all this awesome energy, but then I'd be down again.
Yeah.
And then day 5, the energy became a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And then as each day sort of progressed, the energy started to go up, and it's just seems to be getting better and better ever since then. So I took that for 5 days. When I finished it, I felt great. It was just, like I said, if I'd move around for too much, I'd be a little winded. And that's just sort of where I've been. The 7 days after I left the hospital, I was medically cleared by the Department of Public Health and by my doctors.
Yeah.
And now we're looking maybe 2.5 weeks that I've been cleared from everything, and I'm doing great. I mean,
that's awesome.
Obviously, I don't leave too much. I've gone to the Walmart or to the store here and there to grab a couple things here and there, but if I do a long trip where I'm shopping around a lot, I did need an inhaler a couple of times. They did actually give me an inhaler just in case, mm-hmm. which I never used before in my life. So they had to teach me like a 5-year-old how to use it. But yeah, so I didn't need an
Does it help?
It does, but I don't do 2 puffs. I just do 1 to sort of open me up a little bit. If I do 2, it makes me a little jittery.
Yeah.
But I will say it does help. It really does. But that's just like if it's really extreme. If it hasn't been too much, especially now that it's getting better, I haven't needed it too much. So usually I can just sit down and sort of breathe through it.
Yeah.
So every day has been a little bit better. I have been attempting to going back to working out, but my workouts usually were very intense. So I've been doing a very, very mild beginning again. I set up in my little backyard patio out here a couple things, and it's been good.
Yeah.
I don't do anything crazy, but I've been doing enough just to sort of get my blood going. And honestly, it's been amazing. And I didn't expect it, but it did get a lot of national attention. I actually got worldwide attention because it was, I guess, playing in different countries as well. So I think that I just have been sharing the story with whoever wants to hear it, because there have been so many people in the world, that have been messaging me saying, hey, watching your videos has made me keep my cool. I suffer with anxiety. I suffer with PTSD. I suffer with, depression and all these things. And they said, watching the videos, I took the virus and I humanized it, which was my intention. So what they're saying is I made it a little bit less scary and a little bit more tolerable. Yeah. And this is why I have continued. So I did have a couple of news media outlets reach out, and I said, absolutely. Hey, if we can tell the story and help people, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there's a secondary, if we want to say the word, the pandemic that everyone's saying.
Yeah.
We have COVID, but then there's a second one, in my belief, and I think that that's mental health.
Yeah.
And I think right now that is just as big, if not bigger of an issue.
Yeah.
And what's going on with the COVID stuff. So, and I can say this because I myself, and I'm talking to veterans, I'll say it, I don't care. I do have PTSD. I do have traumatic brain injury from when I was in the service. I do, I get anxiety and all of these things that I think a lot of us, I think we all share that, we have that in common.
Mm-hmm.
So myself, when you see me and those that have followed my videos, I'm smiling and I'm positive and I'm a burst of energy.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that I don't have my own reservations inside.
Yeah.
Which I do.
Yeah.
So if me, that I'm this big old ball of joy, if I'm feeling it, I can only imagine what the next 10, lined up who are not as strong are feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that that's why I've taken kind of, now that we told the story of being sick, I'm refocusing my attention on mental health because, the number of domestic violence cases are climbing. It's skyrocketing right now with the police. I'm afraid that the suicide rate is going to start to go up. I'm afraid that people are, relapsing is about to start happening. All of these people, veterans and single mothers and parents and so many people that have worked so hard to get to a good place, now financial hardship and, the social lack of social interaction and all these things, I think that that's going to have such a major effect, bigger than what people think.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I've been doing this, sharing the story, and there's good sides to it, and then there's a lot of backlash that I'm getting too, but I feel like I need to keep going, and even more so, it's like I've been trying to do something positive every day, but now I'm getting, perfect example today, I contacted the Red Cross organization 2 days ago. I'm trying to give plasma to a firefighter out in Torrance. I'm trying to take my negative experience and help somebody else. Yeah. And I'm just keep doing that. So that's sort of where I am today.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's
great. That was a lot.
That's amazing. Because there's so many aspects of that to, it's not just veterans, but I think what's really hard, what I have been thinking about, is there's a lot of civilian people out there that have never really experienced. They might have a great their tribe. They don't have their own great tribe, but I've always thought that and so I shouldn't be biased, but some civilians probably have a great mindset, but
sure.
It's like there's something about us where a lot of us have developed this mindset through this tribe that we had in the military, and so it may not be just just us that have it. There's probably some civilians, the police, people on police forces, people on the firefighting community, they probably have some similar mindset, but there's definitely an aspect to being positive and also having that strength to get through it, you know what I mean? Because without it, man, if you don't have one or the other, your stress can, stressing about something can lower your white blood cell count too. It's like you can make everything harder on your body just by stressing out about something that doesn't require you to stress out about it, and so it's really hard to be tough when you're stressed out too. So
well, that's what I was just about to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that exactly what you just said. It's so hard to be tough when you're so stressed out and you're going through all of these things. So it's very interesting because in the hospital, like I said, I never allowed myself to feel it. I never allowed myself to say, hey, this is scary. Hey, I'm alone. These are real things that were happening. It's terrifying to have these astronaut people treating you like you're not a human being. It's this whole thing, where I can't breathe and I'm alone. So I think I went through the whole thing. I went through the motions. I was medically cleared. And it wasn't until there was a video that was created by USA Today, which is a very large media outlet. And they made this video. Basically, they compiled a bunch of my videos in the hospital to where my recovery. And there was something about that video that I pushed play, and they went through all of my hospital videos, and it was very quick clips, and it went through it, and it was insane. As I'm watching this video, for the first time, I felt every single emotion in every single moment that I watched. By the end of the video, I was completely in tears for the first time. Yeah. And I don't care, I'll admit it. I cried like a baby.
Yeah.
Because I did. Because I think that it's that toughness of, hey, I don't want to feel it. I can't. I have to be positive, especially when you have a platform like I did where I'm sharing with the world. I don't want to be crying. I don't want to be, doing all these things. But I did have that moment, and I completely broke down because, I was able to finally say, or to validate myself and say, hey, this was a terrible thing that I just went through, and I'm okay. And that was a very emotional moment for me, and it did take a couple of weeks to even get there.
Yeah.
So I think that's another reason why I've been so candid with all of my stuff, because I want to tell everybody, like, it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to not be okay right now. It's okay to, there's this stigma going out right now that, like, I read an article saying that if you're not doing something productive, like material-wise, that you are failing. And I'm saying, no, that's completely false. I think there's a lot of people right now that if you're making it through the day, you still have your life, and you didn't pick up a needle, and you didn't pick up a bottle, that right there, to me, you won. You did it. You made it through the day. And people are losing sight of that. Yeah. So I'm just trying to remind everybody, like, it's a different battle for everyone, and it's okay to feel, and it's okay to I want to be that voice.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I've been doing.
Yeah, I definitely related. I immediately hooked on and related with you when you spoke about the mental aspects of it, because there's not a lot of people that really quite understand, like, coming out of the hospital when you've been in there for a long time and no one's visited you, and all those human aspects. I've never had to experience that. I don't know if I want to. And all those human aspects are taken away from you. And then when you get discharged and you finally get to step out in the sun for the first time, it's like, whoa. Yeah. It's like, whoa, that was that was a roller coaster of a ride.
I remember feeling the wind, and I was just like, what? It was very intense, but it's very surreal for sure.
That's insane. You have such an incredible story, and I don't think a lot of veterans have heard it yet, but they probably will. Now, and so that's my hope. Yeah. Because a lot of everyone has their own opinions. Everyone's saying this or that, and it's like, it's like, if it's working for some people, great. Don't take it away from them. Don't take someone else's experience away from them just because it worked for them. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's so many myths and there's so many rumors out there that are going around, and there's so many I call them keyboard warriors, because they're sitting there behind their phone screen acting tough when in real life they're not the toughest person. They're not tough at all. And it's like,
that alone is a huge battle that I've been, let me tell you.
Yeah, just ignore them. Just don't.
And I think the scary thing is, and we have to remember, the keyboard warriors, they've been there. This is not something that happened overnight. They've been there. It's social media. The issue, I think, is not so much the keyboard, that specific group. Mm-hmm. I think now, which is regular everyday people. So what's happening is we don't have people who are just sitting in their mom's basement all day. That's its own group. These are now normal, functioning. This could be our neighbor. This could be your friend. This could be your boss.
Yeah.
Who have lost their jobs, who are financially struggling, who are not with their families, are absolutely terrified, and are in survival mode.
Yeah.
That to me scares me more than a keyboard warrior that lives in the basement.
Yeah.
And that is what I've been dealing with, and it's so scary because I can handle people cussing me out online. I can handle the conspiracies, because let me tell you, the conspiracy theorists, it cracks me up.
That's really interesting.
What is scary is I've been getting actual threats from people, And I actually had to call the police department and it's been such a big ordeal.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is these folks, because they're afraid, they are so quick to try to debunk. They're quick to try to say you're a fake or whatever else, because I think this time is, being secluded is forcing you to deal with yourself. It's forcing you to spend time with yourself and to really face that, hey, we're not invincible. Yeah. And the same way that I had that humbling moment, I think it's happening to a lot of people, and that is terrifying. Some people can't handle that.
Yeah.
So what's happening here is people are losing it a little bit. They're terrified, and they're lashing out however they can.
Yeah.
So I have had hate groups dedicated to me. I have had people who have attacked me. I mean, it's been insane, and
you can send them my way. I'll make them public on my.
And the thing is, I know that all of us know this, but like me specifically, I work in the security world. We know what worst case scenario could be. We know that you can line up 100 people who just talk, but what it takes is one person.
Yeah.
Who maybe he wasn't just talking.
Yeah.
Look at what has history shown us.
You never know who you're talking. I got a confession to make. So I always get these weird creeps. I don't know if they're real, but they'll like message. You probably get them, but they'll like message you on Instagram.
Yeah. And
it'll show up as like a message request from someone you don't even know. And I'll sit there, and Instagram has an option for you to face dial them. So I'll sit there and call off my Instagram. I'm not afraid. Like, what are you gonna do? I'll sit there and call them until they answer.
Oh my gosh. Well, see, if I did that, I'd probably get a different reaction, but that's awesome.
I fight back with fire. I'm like, you're gonna send this to me. I'm like, let's talk, man. Answer your phone.
Yeah. No, and see, I think for me, because, I am a single woman, I live alone.
Yeah.
There's so many things that, don't get me wrong, if we gotta fight, we'll fight.
Yeah.
I gotta defend myself. I mean, just like I think every single one of us, that's what we were trained to do. We will fight until we can't fight anymore.
Yeah.
But how do you fight crazy?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a whole other. You'll get bit.
Yeah.
And we're not prepared for that, man.
Man, there's some people out there are like, whew, man, they are just. There are some special people out there.
I think a lot of it is associated with that fear. It's just the way that I've been speaking. I'm not pretending to have any medical knowledge, because I'm not pretending to know more or less than I am speaking true to my experience and my experience alone, and I'm being very clear about that. And I think that's scaring people. I'm not supposed to be sick, because if I'm sick, that means they can get sick. So they're going to do everything in their power. I had somebody said that they will not rest until they expose me, and they've been contacting the city, and they've been contacting the fire departments, and it's been so crazy.
Good luck.
They want to prove that I'm fake so that they don't feel, if I'm a fake, then they can't get sick.
Yeah, good luck for them.
So it's been a lot, but like I said, I've sort of, there was a couple days, and I'm going to be, because I'm being as honest with you as I can, and I'm going to continue to be. There was like 2 days there that I did go off the radar, because, not only am I going through this whole thing alone, not only did I just fight for my life in the hospital, on top of everybody shunning you, now I have people threatening my life.
Yeah.
I would wake up in the morning, I'd go to sleep very peaceful. You wake up and you've got, 50 messages of people sending you screenshots of hate groups about you, saying what they're going to do to you. And just as much as you want to shun it away, and it's not like I want to look at it. I open up a message that someone sent me, and it's right there. So it's not like I'm actively looking for it. But when it's come, it's hard. It hurts. It's a very painful thing. And I'm not going to pretend to be invincible. It did hurt. And I've been dealing with it, and I think luckily I've been able to sort of shift my focus to positive things, but I am the first one to admit, and I'm pushing this out there because people need to understand it's okay. I have already reached out for mental health services. I actually already have my first appointment set up, and I'm going to continue with that because I want to deal with it in a healthy way, because it did affect me, and it has affected me.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand is so it's absolutely 100% okay to go get help. Yeah. And to be open about it. Like, you don't have to hide anything. I mean, most healthy individuals, especially your friends, you'll find out real quick who your closest friends are, because they're not going to judge you for anything that you're going through if you're open to them about it. And that's how have found all my friends, every single one of them, everyone that's ever stood by me for my issues. They have turned out to be some of my best friends today. Yeah. And the ones that haven't dipped out and ran, did something else, or it's the opposite. You see it in someone else and you be like, hey man, are you okay? And then as soon as you like ask them if they're okay or suggest something, they completely shun you for it. And some people, it's hard for them to like admit that they need help. They try to handle it for years on their own, and they're not being successful. And it's like, when you've handled it for years on your own, and your friend's coming up to you, like, do not get mad at them if they're suggesting you go get help. Do not get mad, because they're trying to be your friend. They're trying to be there for you, and that's the kind of friend that you want.
Absolutely, I agree. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I do. And like I said, I think that because I am saying these things, it's a little too real for some people. I think some people are not ready to face their own demons, and I think that's why some folks are so quick to want to shut me down, because, hey, that's a taboo. We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to shun it away, because on top of all of these mental health, now there's the keyboard warriors, but then there's also this second piece to it, which is new. And what is happening right now is, if you are associated with COVID, you are now this dirty thing that we don't go near, right?
That's so
and
weird.
let me, it's this stigma, and let me tell you what I mean. And every single person watching this is going to relate.
Yeah.
Many of you have walked into a store in the last month, okay, and you're walking around, and number one, nobody's making eye contact, because God forbid, if you make eye contact, COVID, right?
Yeah, I know, right?
But
so weird.
Apart from that, how many of you you're in the store and you're shopping, and you get this anxiety, like, oh my God, I feel a cough coming. Oh my God, I feel a sneeze. My nose is itching.
As soon as you cough, everyone stares at you.
And you're doing everything in your power to keep the sneeze in, or just to, because, okay, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I did that. I had stitches in the back of my throat from this throat surgery, and I'm walking around I got this gas mask on, because I got to forage and all this other stuff that I'll work with, and I'm walking around the grocery store because I just had surgery. My immune system is completely whacked. It's completely weakened. I can't get it at all, because I'll be screwed. And I'm walking around, and I start asking one of the people that work in the grocery store is like, where's something I can feel a stitch tickle in my throat, and then in my mask I'm like.
Okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he was like.
So get this. So that is a micro reaction to what I did. So that feeling of anxiety that you felt in that moment of that little tickle in the back of your throat, that moment of, oh God, here it comes, and it's coming up, and you know it's coming, and then you let that cough out, and you get that terrible reaction from someone. Take that and expand it to my entire life.
Yeah,
now,
awful.
For anyone who sees me, it's like they're going to take 10 steps back and go, hey, good to see you, and then take another 10 steps back. It doesn't matter how many times I say I'm recovered. It doesn't matter if I take a negative test, if I've been cleared. That is gone.
That's awful.
I now have a permanent stamp across my forehead that says COVID-19 positive.
That's awful.
And it's a shame because of that. Like, I'll give you an example. So, maybe a week ago.
Yeah.
My very best friend, she's basically a sister to me, okay? She's closer to me than family. Mind you, I have been totally alone since the 9th of last month. It's now the 15th of this month. That's a very long time to be alone. And, I talked to my girlfriend, and I was kind of telling her how I was feeling, and, with the cyberbullying and just everything else, I was kind of emotional. So my friend, she decides to pay me a visit. She comes to my house, just to be safe, we did put a mask on because we're silly and we thought it was funny. And then we went to take a picture, and then we're like, oh, this would be so much fun to because my girlfriend and I were crazy. We like to dance around.
Yeah, you guys look like we're having fun.
We're like, let's make a video. And we were like, we don't care what we look like. Let's just go. And was so much fun. And for that moment, I was not COVID-19 positive. I was Yvette.
Yeah.
Just for that moment.
Yeah.
And it was such a strong, powerful moment for me. Like, it was mentally, people don't understand. I needed that.
Yeah.
You know, when people talk about essential, that at that moment was essential to me.
Yeah.
So I post the video. Oh my God, I must have woken up with maybe 200 messages calling me every name in the book, cursing me out to all hell, saying, how dare you endanger your friend's life?
Oh my gosh.
And that I was a monster, and that I was going to go to hell because I endangered her.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here like, I don't know. I'm not going to sit there and try to explain to every single person because this is my business. But I know I did make a video kind of explaining to people like, hey, it was an essential visit. Like, back off a little bit. You know, I need this moment. I need, you know, if it's, and then I read something later that it was talking about essential. Like, who can determine what's essential? You know, let's say, and I think the example was like, if there was a guy who walks into Walmart and he's buying a thing of paint, you could sit there and point at him all day and say, hey, that's not essential. How dare you? But how do you know that him painting is not his release because he was addicted to heroin his whole life? How do you know that you don't know? Yeah. So I think that this is the perfect timing for us to sort of take a step back and breathe and remember that just because somebody gets sick or just because whatever it is, they're still a human being. You know, we don't need to shun people. We don't need to attack them because we feel, number one, we're not doctors. Number two, unless you were going through the process with them in the hospital and everything, you don't know where they are in their recovery. You don't know what's going on.
Everyone's experience is going to be different, you know. And like, I'm no scientist. I know a little bit about biology because my background's in there, you know, and it's like, you know, the MERS, the virus was causing holes in people's lungs, and that was all from their immune system overreacting. It wasn't even from the virus itself. And so it's like everyone's gonna have a completely different experience than the person to the right and the person to their left. And then the crummy part is gonna be like you said, the after, because it doesn't end there, because then you got it's such a big event that, you know, it carries on through our mental health. You know, in a way, they're almost like PTSD symptoms from what I've been hearing from people. You know, they're very, very similar to PTSD symptoms. Yeah. And people don't really understand, you know, what those, you know, because it's almost like that can, for some people, turn into like a survival mechanism. It can, for some people, turn into a depression. It just depends on how you react to it and how you're able to control it and manage it. And everyone's going to be different in managing it too. But, you know, it's like that mental toughness right there boils down to you, who's in your tribe. You know, it's like the crappy part is going to be for some people are going to have to go down there. And like I had commented on here, some people are going to have to go down to the gates of hell and knock on it by themselves. Yeah. That's going to be really crappy, but it's often better times if you can do that with someone else. You do that together.
I absolutely agree with the statement that you just made, because I am somebody with, I was previously diagnosed with PTSD. So that would probably be the best way to describe it, because when I talked about the USA Today video, I relived every second of that video. Like, literally, as I'm watching it, I am sitting in that hospital. I'm going, like, it was insane. And this is something that I'm now carrying with me. And there's little, and I hate to even use this word because people are like, oh, well, you're weak if you use that word. I don't care. Yeah. There are little triggers. There are comments that some folks would make. You know, when people started saying that I faked, painful. Yeah. Because I know what I went through. It was extremely difficult. Mentally, it wore me. So to have people attempting to discredit me, you know, to try to say that I faked it, I mean, it's one of those things where you start laughing for the first little bit, but then when it continues and it continues and it continues, it does hurt. It does. And not only did you suffer this terrible thing, but now people are trying to take that away from you. Yeah. Trying to say, no, you didn't. That's not true. And I don't think people understand the mental wear that does to a person. I don't care how tough you are. I don't care how strong you are. It's painful. Yeah. And, you know,
it's almost like forcing them to go back down and knock on the gates of hell again. Yeah. It pretty much does. And that's a horrible thing to do to a person.
Oh, yeah. And the thing also there's more. So listen to this. So on top of the stigma, the personal battle that you're going through, the mental health, well, just like all of you, I am also financially affected.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if people forgot that. I work.
Yeah.
As soon as I got sick, I stopped working, and because of the fear and because of the stigma. Now let me start off by saying I'm very well liked and respected in my job. I am one of the team. I'm one of the leaders in my company, and even now I've been cleared.
Yeah.
I've been, I'm ready to go, and they're just not ready to have me back at work. Now it's not something where they don't want me there. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
It's a very, very unique circumstance. This is not like, hey, I caught strep throat, here's my doctor's note, I'm back. This is very different because we don't know how the virus behaves. We don't know, there's rumors out there saying that this might even lie dormant in you where you test negative and then it reactivates and comes back.
Yeah.
We just don't have enough information. So as much as I would love to go back to work and they would love to have me back, is it really safe right now? Is this the best time for me to really go and potentially be around all these people? And that at the same time, my body's still healing. Mm-hmm. My antibodies are still building back up. So I could potentially be exposed to something else. There's so much there. So I'm not making any money on top of all this, and I know everybody thinks I'm getting paid, but I'm not.
Yeah.
It's the news. You don't get paid to be on the news. Come on, people.
It's gonna be a while before we know how everything about this virus and
exactly.
One of the things that I read one scientific report, and it's every scientific what people need to realize too is every scientific report is just that. It's just a report, and they can be criticized by other scientists.
Right.
They can be downplayed as they had some errors in their methods or whatever, and then on top of that, if because I'm heavily involved in the scientific community, if you want a good report, make sure that the journal that is reporting it is a reliable journal. People just go out there and they'll look for something that says that says .org, and they'll think it's true, and none of it's true. You'll see like the source it came from. You click on the source, and it doesn't even pull up anything. And it's like,
and this is the big issue that I was telling you about this before we went on, is all of this bad information that's going out. Because yes, there are people who, exactly like you said, they're doing reports and they're doing all these things, but that does not necessarily mean that what's being reported is a fact.
Yeah.
These are different pieces of information that are being put out there for different reasons, but these folks are, they'll read one article, they have no idea where it came from, but like you said, it's a .org, so that, I like that one. That one sort of answers, it fits me, or
satisfies their serotonin levels.
Yeah, or even better, people love horror films. People love, that's why, when you watch the news, it's all tragic. Yeah. People love tragedy. They love to be afraid. So, this is the scariest one. Oh, there's all these positive reviews, but you know what? There's this one report, and that one sounds terrifying. So that's where I'm going to take it. I'm going to spew that out to the world. So I think that is the scariest thing right now is all these quote-unquote experts that have now come out because they read one or two things that are not necessarily from a credible source.
Yeah. That's why, lately I've been, the only news source I've been getting my news from is from Task and Purpose, because I'm like, I can't read anything else. I'm like, it's so negative. I'm like, at least Task and Purpose.
I can't tell you how many times I look at things and I just roll my eyes. I'm like, really, you guys?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's like, and a part of me is just like, oh man, because I'm heavily involved in the scientific community, especially over here. I'm doing my master's in a remote sensing, and it's like I know how this process works. And when I did watch the news, it's like, wow, they're reporting numbers, but they're not telling you how accurate those numbers are. And I'm like, to an extent, I'm like, well, that's not the politician's fault. That's the scientist's fault, because that should be reported. It's just the politicians, reporting, they don't know what they're doing. They're not, that's not their area.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But,
And then people,
but I absolutely agree.
people are freaking out, and it's like, you got to I keep telling all my friends, I'm like, stop paying attention to the numbers. You're just going to freak yourself out.
I stopped listening a long time ago. I said it in one video, and I said, I'm only going to say this one time, and I'm dropping it. I said, if you start anything that is progressing at 0, that is progressing.
Yeah.
The numbers are going to go up because you're starting at 0.
Yeah.
So that's what I tried telling everybody. Like, yeah, you know what? It sounds scary, but of course the numbers are growing. There were no tests. There was nothing.
Yeah.
So you're coming from the numbers 0. And if you think about how many people you have, it's just, I've been trying to tell everybody, like, don't allow yourself to panic. Just relax and focus. Instead of focusing on that,
focus on
how
yourself.
many of us have been at our job, even if you love your job, you're 10, 12 hours in and you're like, oh my God, I wish I could be home with my girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, kids, whatever. Guess what? You have been given this awesome gift, as much as it sucks because maybe, some of us aren't getting paid or whatever.
Yeah.
You got your kids at home, man. You got your dude at home. You got your woman at home.
Yeah.
Enjoy them. Just take that energy that you're putting into that stupid newscast and counting numbers and just enjoy your family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What I did for myself, because I live alone. I'm from California. I was born up by Redding, only a few hours away from you. And I might be making the trip home here soon. I'm going to drive if I have to. I'm not flying, that's for sure. Well, I'm like, it's like, what I've done for myself, because I rarely see, I go visit some of my buddies, Mac, I call him my co-host because he's usually on with me. He's been one of the greatest friends I've had out here. But, what I've done is I've made a list of like all these things that I want to do since I've spent so much time alone.
Yeah.
Like I'm practicing the guitar over here, like, almost every day now. I made a list of like my weaknesses that I know that I struggle with. There's some things, as soon as I see them, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be lazy. I don't want to do this, and I made a list. Well, I'm going to work. I'm going to use this time, that I'm afforded to, knock out something that I suck at.
Yeah.
And I've been sitting here contemplating, man, I'm like, I could totally go like learn, I could teach myself like how to paint. I could order some like painting materials and like teach myself how to paint or something. And like, there's so many things that you could do that you've never done before now that you have more time alone. So you got a puppy the other day, didn't you?
What? Yeah, I did. Actually, I got a puppy. Just because, again, I felt myself kind of spiraling. I don't like to use that word because it wasn't extreme, but I started to feel my energy shift. Yeah. In a negative way, and I said, you know what, I need to do something to catch myself and to redirect. And I've been wanting another one for about a year now. My dog is about a year and a half, he's almost 2, and he's always alone. So I'm like, you know what, this would be a perfect time because the only thing that was stopping me was I do work a lot. I'm working anywhere from 50 to 70 hours a week. So you got to train a puppy, and I didn't have time. So I'm like, you know what, if I get one, it'll be an opportunity for me to go positive again, to refocus, recenter myself, and just put some love and affection into this little innocent little thing. So for me, it has completely it's put me in a totally different space.
Is that what we hear right now?
Is it what?
Is that what I'm hearing right now?
No, I think that's a crying child outside. No, my dog's over there flipped upside down with his legs in the air like this.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, no, but the dog could be a metaphor for anything.
Yeah.
Anything, something that you're passionate about, something where you can refocus yourself and sort of reconnect. I definitely think this is a great opportunity. And even if you're just thinking about it, maybe you didn't get it done today or yesterday, but the fact that your mind is going there, that's a positive thing. You're starting to think about self-improvement, even though you might be sitting there watching Tiger King for the 4th. Yeah. It's okay.
I still haven't even watched that.
Recommend. Anyway, but yeah, it's at least getting people into a thought process of starting to do something positive. I'm all for it.
Yeah. So, man, if there was one thing that you wanted to let people know, to the last little bit that you think that would help people understand this, and then how they could reach out, if they're struggling mentally in this time, like what would be like your message that you'd want to tell people?
Yeah, so I think after everything, the main message that I can really tell every single person who's watching, who's listening, is whatever you do, hold on to your humanity and hold on to who you are. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm saying this is because I'm noticing a huge shift. People are losing themselves. Mm-hmm. They're getting lost, and that's okay. It's okay. But just do whatever you can to try to refine yourself when you're done going through whatever you're going through. Remember who you were before this happened. Remember all the great qualities that you have as a human being, because we're going to need that when the world comes back in.
Yeah.
I think when we come back in, everyone thinks it's going to go right back to the way it was. It's not. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of people who are mentally affected. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to continue to live in fear for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that the best thing we can contribute as individuals when we open back up is to try to regain your sense of humanity. Remember that we are all valuable, and nobody is less than. Nobody is, instead of walking around with your nose stuck up in the air like, oh, I'm the cleanest thing around, remember that we all coexisted in this world before this happened.
Yeah.
And even though we had issues, it worked out okay. I've been here for about 30 years and I'm doing all right. So
yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. And if you are somebody who needs any kind of help, I myself actually am going to start looking into support groups. If we need to do something more private, I'm going to start logistically seeing what I can do. If you need any help, especially if you are a service-connected veteran, they have resources for us. You guys call the VA, ask for help. It does not make you weak. Yeah. It's okay to ask for help. And even if you're not comfortable doing that, there are so many veterans, and from the shortest to the tallest, big, fat, whatever, so many veterans who could be feeling exactly like you.
Yeah.
Who, there's gatherings, there's different things that we could be doing to help each other. So I think that would be the most important thing that I would say is do not lose yourself and just don't give up.
Yeah.
Just hang up a little longer, because this will pass. It will. And if you ever get to a point where you're in despair and you feel like it's the end, call someone. The hotlines are still open. There are so many mental health services people out there that are still working.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends that are therapists that are saying, I want people to call me.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart that people aren't calling. They say we want people to reach out. So we got to hold on to each other right now, especially us. We like you say, we have a tribe. We have this beautiful brotherhood that we were gifted. And I think that we need to use it as much as we can.
Yeah, exactly. So last question. Now, this is totally not related to this apocalypse that's going on, but it could be. If the end of the world was coming, would you prefer aliens or zombies, and why?
I have a question for your question.
Let's hear it.
Are we talking Walking Dead zombies, or that other movie with Brad Pitt? Those crazy
I would totally go Walking Dead zombies.
Okay, then I would do zombies. Because I had to fight those zombies from that one movie where they're stacking on top of each other and running like crazy. I don't know if I'd make it.
Yeah.
What was it, World Z? Isn't that what it's called?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, World Z.
Terrifying.
Yeah. No, I don't imagine. I hope zombies don't turn out like that.
But see, if they're slow, we can work with them if they're slow.
Yeah, we can work with them.
Aliens, I would not mess with, because they got stuff that we don't. I can't even imagine.
I would want to be honest. A lot of my amputee friends are gonna be mad at me for saying this. I'm always jealous of my army amputee friends, because some of them, they get the robotic hands, and I'm like, I'm so mad at you. I'm like, and they're like, why? I'm like, because you could flip people off with that and be like, it's malfunctioning. But I'm like, now that I think about it, I'm like, you could actually use that thing to stuff it in the zombie's mouth and not get bit.
Oh, that's awesome. No, see, the cool thing about you, because you said you have one or two legs.
I'm missing one, but I have a bunch of backups.
Well, what I mean is you have just one that you haven't amputated. So when you watch the Tiger King, there's this guy. He's a double amputee, double amputee, and he had these legs made. They're so cool, and it's literally all painted.
Oh, that's
They're
cool.
painted like tattoos.
Oh wow.
he puts them on. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely take a look, because I think you may not be able to flip people off,
Yeah.
but you could do something cool with the legs.
This is like a cool body piercing now.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. All right. I'll have to look at it.